Welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Detour podcast, where Thomas and Dennis are taking a deep dive into the world of Van Halen. For such a thing, we couldn't think of a better guest than the man behind Nerd Halen, which is one of the finest Van Halen tribute acts around. This is one for the guitar geeks, so join us for an hour of Van Halen nerding with the one and only Caleb Rapoport.
We are rolling, and this is Caleb from Nerd Halen.
Can you hear me?
Let's hear it. I can hear it. There we go. Listen, man, I gotta say, so it's probably about 7 years ago. I came across this video, and I remember what really surprised me was this was the first time that I heard somebody who was playing Van Halen the way it should sound.
Thank you.
So I gotta hear the story here. What's Nerd Halen about? Because I guess it's about Van Halen, but you have a little twist to it.
Well, let's see. I mean, there's a band and then there's me, but before the band, I was the nerdy Van Halen guy who was just all about the band and all about Edward, and I started playing in like 1982, 83, and I was able to meet him. That kind of lit the fire, and when I got home from that meeting, I listened to the records closer, I guess, and realized what the whole hubbub was about, because I already wanted to play guitar, but my parents bought me an acoustic, and it wasn't really doing it for me. So I knew when I came home from meeting him and his brother, actually at the same thing, I knew that that guitar sound was something that I wanted to achieve somehow, and it wasn't even about like his licks and soloing and shredding and stuff. I just loved the way his rhythm sounded, and the command he had with his right hand, and that was more of the hey
Dennis.
What's up?
So you were saying about the command of his right hand? Hi, Dennis.
How you doing?
Yeah.
So
I'm good, man.
Good.
And you?
So we're talking about Edward Van Halen. So that's what I basically spent the next 10 years of my life in my room trying to achieve, with that feel, not so much the note for note solos or anything like that. I just wanted to play with his feel. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
And I think, and that's kind of what sets you apart, because I think a lot of it's sort of the same as when a lot of people they try to do the Jimi Hendrix thing. It's like, I think Jimi Hendrix is more or less impossible to copy or duplicate, because he played in such a, like, there was no rules, you know what I mean? He played in his own way, and he did things that most people would never do. And whenever somebody else tries to play Hendrix, I always feel like it gets too controlled, if that makes sense. And I think when you do the Van Halen thing, you actually capture that sort of playfulness that Eddie used to have.
There's definitely some other guys who can play it really well and do it where I'm kind of in awe, and But what I always try to do, especially with the band, is I kind of want it to sound like it's him, but just on a different day. You know, like
Mm,
uh,
mm.
so.
Yeah.
What choices would he make here or there that would you sound like him, or it just has that spirit. So if I
Yeah, but that's what makes it playful. That's the whole point where it gets exciting again, because a lot of people, they studied Eddie, and they like present what they have studied in the manner that they have studied it, but instead of saying what did he actually do, but how do I get inside the mindset of Eddie Van Halen? What would he possibly do in this situation? Well, it's not a long fetch that he would do something like
right,
this, because you seem to understand like the essence of Eddie Van Halen. So it's not so much about every single note. It's more about, well, as Thomas said, playing as opposed to
yeah,
studying. So it sounds playful, and that's what makes it so much fun and so fucking interesting
yeah. Well, I
to
mean, it became
witness.
a curse because that's
Yeah.
when you study or try to do something for so long, it becomes your whole style. And then you forget, like, oh, I should have been trying to do my own style. and and then your life goes by, and you don't really find anything to deploy your skills with. And so guitar for me kind of went away, and just took a back seat to other things for decades. And it was only 10 years ago that I I I really wanted to just play live, because I'd never really played live in a band unit, all the way into my late 40s. So I mean, I played here and there and sat in with people, but I'd never had my own thing. So I got together with friends, and we played out. We played covers, and that was fun. And it was basically an excuse to play a bunch of Van Halen songs and some other songs. And but then I wanted to start something, and I knew a Van Halen tribute would be fun, but I definitely am not a look-alike for Edward, and I definitely I'm way taller than him, and I can't put a wig on and look the part. I always said it would look like Howard Stern stage left, so you know it it had to be different. It had to be like a gimmick, so to speak. Because a straight tribute was
Yeah.
not going to work for me. That, and I don't like. I'm not a fan of straight tributes. I think it's kind of stupid, because
Yes.
um, I never kind of went to a tribute show and looked at the band and told myself or tried to convince myself that what I was seeing was them. The original band. So,
Mm.
but that
No.
seems to be what those type of products are like requiring you to believe. And I didn't get it. So, but here, to full disclosure, I have a lot of good friends who are in tributes, and they do dress the part. So I'm not trying to rag on them. I'm not trying to demean them. I'm just saying that that's something I never planned on doing. And I'm glad I was able to come up with something else based on just my personality and who I've been my whole life, which was the Van Halen nerd. To all my friends, I was that person, very nerdy about Van Halen, about Eddie, and when it came time to create a band, the the thing I thought about was, there were other bands that were nerds and wearing nerd gear and looking like nerds, so I kind of lifted that a little, and thought, well, there's no nerd band doing Van Halen, so how about Nerd Halen? And that's where it came from.
Yeah.
And it's fun because the comedy part of the show, which we rely on heavily, is really if you go back to the early Dave era stuff, people went to a Van Halen concert and they got the big rock music, they got the musical virtuoso and Edward and his brother, and but between songs they got a lot of laughs, from David,
Mm.
Yeah.
and he brought this comedic, humoristic, facet of the experience, and that's something that very few other rock bands would do, because of how serious they take themselves. Everyone takes themselves very seriously in this business, and Dave was really smart to figure out that people want to have a good time, they want to laugh, they want to smile, they want to be loose, and they want to know that the band is having a good time too, or appear, even if they weren't, it was the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So I knew that I wanted to. I've been in musical comedy. I'm an actor. I've worked with troops that do comedy and mix it with music. And I knew that if we were able to add a comedic element to a Van Halen tribute, then that would be exactly what I wanted to accomplish. And so I had to find basically a stand-up comedian who could sing, and to be our singer. And
And Michael's star was already taken by Steel Panther.
yes, a friend of his was not, and that's Hal Sparks. And Hal, when he
Yeah.
heard about the concept,
Cool.
he was all in right away, because he knew that I mean, he loves the music, he loves the band. He's it's funny, he's a little partial to Sammy. I have two guys in the band that are partial to Sammy, and myself and the
What?
drummer
Oh
partial
my
to
God.
Dave. I love it all because it's all Eddie, and I've never get in the arguments about what could have been. It's all it happened, and it's unfortunate that the original band broke up. Let's face it, but people I don't know what they expected the Van Halen brothers to do. Like, did they think they should just quit? Should they
No, of course. I
quit
mean,
playing music because their singer left? They had to figure something out, and they did the best they could, and they got some really great music, and that was a great band.
it was pretty fucking
Yes.
great. I
So
mean, I got turned on to Van Halen because of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, because that was on MTV at the time. Pound Cake, Top of the World, those songs. I didn't know about old Van
yeah,
Halen. Looking back now, yeah, I do prefer the three first albums,
6.
but it was for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and Balance that really got me into Van Halen to begin with. So I do owe that to
Yeah,
Sammy. And it's all good. I mean, it's not like they did shit albums. I might not be super excited about the Gary Sharon album, but I mean, I don't know what happened there. But aside from that, they haven't actually done any bad albums. And uh, yeah, Sammy Hagar is a fucking great singer as well. Probably more so than David Lee Roth, but David Lee Roth was like a larger than life
yeah,
personality, and so yeah. So but yeah, so I do agree with most people that Van Halen for me is Mark One, but it was Mark Two that got me
sure.
into it. So
No, and it's all just
yeah,
the whole it's the whole combination of everything, because now it's over, and we only have it to
yeah,
look back on. So it is what it is.
I gotta say, I actually love the fact that they have different eras because one could wonder that if Dave had stayed in the band, who knows, maybe they would have burned themselves out.
yeah,
But
could have been.
the whole switch up, and and I thought that Sammy added a completely different thing to the band. But the other day I was actually listening to 5150, and there were several songs on that album where I thought to myself, I could almost hear Dave singing on some of those songs. Maybe not the whole melody line, but he would add his own swagger
Well,
to it. So that made me think like, well, they still maintained
yeah.
what is
Well,
Van Halen,
somewhere,
even though
you know,
they changed things up.
the thing about Van Halen is they're notorious for using old, like a lot of bands, a lot of artists. It's only because Van Halen stuff got spilled on the internet that people know that they had all these old riffs and songs and tapes that they would go back and get
Hmm.
and make new songs out of. But that's every artist does that. It's
Yeah.
just every artist doesn't get exposed for that. So they were exposed
Mm.
big time.
Yeah.
And actually, when they did that last record, A Different Kind of Truth, and like
Different kind
two-thirds
of
of it
truth.
is
Yeah.
all old stuff. It
How
Why
good
is
was
that a
that, by the way?
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean,
Why would that even be a
people
problem?
think
You
that
know.
that's lazy, and it's not. It's what all artists do. They all keep a bunch of ideas
Mm.
and
yeah.
they dive into them or bring them back because it is what they is. So somewhere, I believe it,
Yeah.
there's tapes of David Lee Roth singing over riffs from 5150 and from OU812 and
Yeah.
even from, For Unlawful Connor Knowledge. There's probably
Oh.
Dave singing over that stuff because they were constantly
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
on things and not everything made it to press. So,
Mm.
It's
Yeah. I have
funny you
some.
said that, Thomas, because I was just thinking today I just finished recording a song for the next album, and I just started thinking when you said this, holy shit, that song is 22 years old. That's when the demo is like from. So I never really considered this, but yeah, of course we make stuff and then we put it aside sometimes, and then
yeah,
stuff
what are
pops
you
up
supposed to
again.
do? Keep it all
Did
fresh?
you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, but have you ever tried that thing where you thought you wrote something and you didn't? Like, for example, I think it was like Steve Vai that was doing an album, and then he had this riff, and it sounded exotic, and it was really cool, and he released it, and then the record label pulled the brakes on it and said, "Oh, we can't just." And he said, "Why not? I had the sheet music at home. I wrote it myself." Apparently, it was written by the guys from ABBA. It was for that one night in Bangkok thing, Chess the musical. Steve Vai
Oh
probably
yeah.
wrote that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually released the album, and they almost forgot to credit the app guys.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but yeah,
But,
it's kind of when stuff gets this old. Sometimes I think better give it an extra listen. Maybe I actually
yeah.
just stole this, you know.
Right on.
I was. I was. I was. I got one question. Are you wearing your signature guitar
Yes.
strap there? Yeah, with
Oh
your
my
little.
God, we gotta see that.
Yeah. It's funny. We would do shows and I would meet people after shows and they would say stuff like, uh, yeah, you look good, but where's your pocket protector? And I would say, well, usually the pocket is on the left breast, right? So I'm like, it wouldn't really read
Yeah.
because my strap is covering my pocket. So
Yeah.
my good friend Louis Costa, he's in Connecticut here in America. He has a company called Fairfield Guitar Straps, and he has a bunch of artists, by the way. But we were always talking because he kind of came onto the scene making all the old Van Halen guitar straps from history. He like made the
Wow.
bomber strap and the one from the Bumblebee and the banjo strap from the
Yeah.
5150 guitar, which is what this is kind of based on. And so he that was his little nerdy thing. He wanted to make those straps and make them available to people, and he did. And he was getting all these artists to come on board and make straps for them, like Frankie Lindia from the Atomic Punks. He has a bottle opener on his strap. So there's these little.
It sounds like my spirit
Yeah,
animal.
no, it's great. It's a great idea. And so, I couldn't think of anything until I thought about someone saying, "Where's your pocket protector?" And I thought, wait, let's make a pocket protector strap so that at least over the left
Yeah.
breast, there's my pocket protector. So we did that, and it is available at fairfieldguitarcompanies.com or whatever the site is. Look it up, and you can order this strap. Yes,
Fairfield.
thank you, Louis.
Nice.
But
I'm
then you
actually,
also but then you also, instead of a cigarette by the headstock, you place a
That is
pencil, right?
correct. Uh, that is correct.
yeah.
Um,
There we go.
that is something I started doing at shows because I thought it was funny and obviously I never thought it was cool to have a cigarette. I used to smoke, and I've done it. I probably started smoking because of Eddie. But with what happened to him, I never wanted to glorify the smoking part of playing music and Van Halen. So I've seen other Van Halen tribute guys have a cigarette in their headstock. I think it's kind of distasteful in a way. So I thought, wow, wouldn't it be nerdy to have a pencil instead of a cigarette? And so I've had the pencil for many years in the headstock, and
I love that you're saying that because I mean I remember looking back at old album covers where I'd be like always having a cigarette in my mouth or in my hand. Or it was really important for me to have cigarettes because
yeah,
cigarettes were cool. And when I look at it now, I'm 49. I just feel like, oh, what a fucking idiot, man. I mean, it just looks
funny,
ridiculous now. But at the time being, I was like, hey, oh, let's get some cigarettes in the picture so people don't think we
no, it's
suck. It's
definitely.
like,
But young
yeah.
young people think it's cool, and you grow up and you start to realize it's not cool, and you're addicted, and it stinks. And,
Exactly. I mean, it worked on me. I picked up
Well,
smoking because I thought it looked
yeah,
cool. So, and I don't smoke either now. So,
at least neither of you went as far as Derek Smalls from Spinal Tap, who's got this like whole device mounted by his headstock where he can put his giant pipe
yeah, yeah, I
I haven't
saw
seen the
that.
second.
instead of like a cup.
Yeah, it's a pipe holder
Yeah.
on the headstock.
But it's funny. Yeah.
So,
Real quick on this. We just played 3 dates on the East Coast or in the Midwest actually, and we needed new merchandise, and so I made a new T-shirt, and the T-shirt has the headstock with the pencil on it.
yeah,
And
Ah, all right.
that's brilliant. That's
yeah,
brilliant. So last summer I got through Alex Van Halen's
yeah.
book Brothers, and I decided to listen to it mostly because he was
Me
reading it
too.
out loud
Me too.
himself, so it sort of added a
Yeah,
bit
I
more.
wanted to
Yeah,
hear it.
and that book really made me think an extra time about the fact that he was like a mad scientist when it came to his
Yeah,
sound, his tone, and it seemed like he was never, he would always tweak something, and it's like, I'm going to drill a hole in the guitar and see what that does to the sound. How did, because you managed to capture that sound very well.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lot of it. A lot of it's in the hands. Most. So they said Edward
Yeah.
could play through, somebody's pig nose, and it would sound like him, and that's the truth. In fact, he would play without an amp, and it would sound like him. It doesn't matter. So
Mm.
it's just the extra kind of eh, uh, you know brown sound or whatever you want to call it that he would go after to really deliver the goods. So I've gone through several different forms of gear, for Nerd Halen. Over the years, I started with an actual EVH rig, and I got a friend of mine who's an amp builder in the East named Burke Hun, and he made a voltage drop box for me, custom made with like 4 different voltage settings. You could do 85, 90, 95,
Right.
100 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had my EVH EL 3450 watt head biased for it. And so I had a really good gooey sound going there, and use that for the first couple of years of Nerd Halen. And then we were doing a lot of traveling, so it was really hard to travel with an amplifier. So I started I got into the modeler thing, and the first modeler I used was the Head Rush, and was able to get some really good tones from that. I thought, I was surprised actually, because I'd never really heard of the company, and someone turned me on to that, and if it sounds good, it is good, and that's always been Eddie's thing, so I had no problem using this little small, this big Head Rush box, and I would have an outboard phaser and flanger because it was hard to duplicate those sounds, and that's how I would fly with that, and just plug into the front of house, and I'd use one of those mini EVH amps, these little ones that.
The miniature version,
right,
for the belts.
Put that like on a couple of milk cartons or like a stool behind me on stage, where all the cabinets should be, right? But I'd have that, and then I'd have the sound guy dead mic it, so it would be mic'd like it was my actual sound. And it was hilarious because it looked like this little thing was getting that sound, and it fooled a lot of people, but it was really just a joke.
Imagine having a wall of sets like that.
I've seen it.
250 of those in the background.
That's a great idea. So maybe in the future when we get a bigger budget. But so I used the Head Rush for a while, and then I'm friends with Dave Friedman, and Dave he came out with that IRX pedal preamp. It's got 2 little literal tubes in the pedal as a preamp, and I was at NAMM a few years ago, and he plugged me in and started working his fingers on it, and I was like, oh shit, now I have to get this, and so I had to get some extra pedals around it because it wasn't a modeler where I could slip in reverb and delay and stuff, and so it was and then the EVH Boss delay, stereo delay, came out at that time. So the whole pedal board has evolved over the years, and I was using that for a couple of years, and that sounded great. And then last year the Tonex Brown Sound stuff came out from Jim Galstad, who basically went through every Van Halen song on the first 6 records, and matched the tones on those records, and so I have access to that, and I've some friends at IK Multimedia, and so I'm an endorser of that company, and I actually first time I ever performed at NAMM was this year, and I demoed those tone packs, and so that's what I've been using lately up to now. The Tonex IK Multimedia Brown Sound, 7879, 8081, 8284, and I believe there's new ones coming for the Sammy era, so that's coming soon. But that sound is this sound. That's my main sound for the Dave era. A different, it's kind of similar, but it has a little more chorusy for the Sammy era. And that's what I'm using, and it sounds fantastic, and I'm really happy with how easy it is, how small my pedal board is, and all of that. So it makes traveling very, very, very convenient. So that
It really does. I mean, how far has technology come? I mean, like, I remember when the Kemper
yeah.
came out, like, no, when the Pod came out in the
Mhm.
90s, it was like, how they ever
The
gonna
line,
top
the line
this?
six, the line six.
I recorded albums on a Pod. Yeah, the Line 6 Pod. And I was like, you can never get closer to a real amp than this. Well, I was pretty fucking wrong, uh, but then like the Kemper came out and the Axifix stuff, and now you can get like Tonix has amazing
No,
stuff.
they're all competing. They're all
Even like
competing, and they're all driving the the
yeah,
products.
they're
Yeah,
really
yeah,
pushing each other. I remember seeing like that Tonix pedal. The small one is like $100 or something like that, and the competitor for that one was is the Valiton GP5, and they both sound
amazing.
absolutely amazing. And I think the Valiton is like $50, from new.
Yeah,
So I mean, there's no excuse for not sounding great anymore.
no,
It's a pretty amazing time to be alive as a guitar player.
absolutely. Hang on.
And I mean, in your riff sounds, I mean, you get the instant Van Halen, uh, vibe and sound and everything. I mean, nobody is doubting what that is supposed to be.
It works. I'm happy with what I'm
Exactly.
getting.
Yeah,
The sad thing
Exactly.
is, I was able to accumulate a lot of amps and cabinets and things and all this stuff and guitars and with my EVH deal and then my whole condo burned in the fire. So I lost just about
Oh
everything. I
fuck.
was able to grab like 5 or 6 guitars and
Oh,
of my 20, and that was it. So yeah,
shit,
that's a
man.
tough one.
Yeah,
so I've been
yeah.
slowly replenishing everything, and a lot of companies sent me stuff, which is great. Everyone has come through, so that's the best.
Do you ever miss the full stack, like in your
Oh
back
yeah.
live,
Oh yeah.
uh, the whole classic experience of just having
I
massive amps on
well,
stage?
I wasn't able to have that too often, especially of my own stuff, because we don't really play locally all that much, and the most
Yeah,
elaborate thing I've ever done is just two 412s in stereo behind me, which is how I like it. So, but
yeah.
I lost those two cabinets.
But yeah, but the whole getting a push from behind. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, what
okay,
I
yeah.
do now with the tone,
Yeah, or
I
you
put it,
you
I
or
turn off the cab simulation and I put it into the Seymour Duncan stereo power amp that
Oh, so you do get
this
cab on
big,
stage?
and so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
push two cabinets wherever we travel to. I have two cabinets waiting, and I'll push those cabinets and mic them, right and left, hard pan in the house, and the delay is splitting them up
Perfect.
stereo, so it does that bounce
Yeah,
across the stage. It sounds great. So uh,
yeah. I do the same thing. It's just I got the idea that maybe you were just using in-ear and then nothing else. Monitor in-ear or just a monitor, and that can feel
well,
a little
I just
flimsy, I guess.
I just
But I mean,
started.
if you getting cabs
Yeah,
on
I just
stage,
started using in ears uh, finally,
yeah,
and I think it's although it's different and you want to feel it and all that stuff, but I'm 56 years old and you know there's too many nights I come home and I'm ringing for a day, at least,
just goes. Yeah,
and
yeah. I know.
um, so I'm trying to preserve whatever I have left with the in ears, but you can still feel it if it's behind you, which is good.
That's the whole point. You do get that air from behind. It can be a stage can be a really weird place to be if, for example, there are no cabinets. I mean, everything's a matter of
Mhm.
getting used to, and you could definitely get used to that as well. I mean, it's not like Metallica is noticing whether they have cabinets or not because they run around in a stage the size of a football field. So, but yeah, the idea that you have just a cab on stage to give that. I don't mind if they use a direct to front of house line signal
Mhm.
from a modeler or my modeler. It's fine. but I would like to just have the,
Well,
you know, they don't even have to mic it up, just like a
yeah,
cat that
even
does
in that
something on
situation,
stage.
you can still get it through your wedge, and you can get it through the side fills, and you can even put it behind you too. You
Exactly.
can have
Yeah.
monitors behind you. So there's all kinds of ways to push air, they call it. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's the best thing about the modelers is it's a tone and a sound you can rely on from gig to gig. Like it never changes. So,
Yeah.
and that'll happen a
Absolutely.
lot with amplifiers depending on, what the wall plug is. If you get a wall plug that has a different wattage or voltage, uh, you're going to
Yeah.
sound like shit some nights where you're like, I don't know why I sound like shit. It's just because of how much power is coming out of the wall. So there's all kinds of variables in that, scenario that a modeler really helps clean up. So technology.
Yeah.
Well,
Technology.
I'll stick to my boss metal
Okay.
zone.
Yes.
that
You're allowed.
But I actually thought to something you said earlier about, its fingers, which made the sound as well. And it just made me think of, I think it was Ted Nugent who told a story about how they met and they tried each
Yeah.
other's rig out. And, Ed was standing there with a giant Gibson
Hmm.
Birdland. Yeah. And he said, yeah, it didn't sound like Ted. It sounded like Ed. And Ed was on the Frankenstrat, and he said, "Yeah, it just
Yeah,
sounded
I
like,
think that Ted was more
yeah,
disappointed than
Wango
Ed was.
Tango."
So yeah,
Yeah.
because
So, but do do you feel when you're like when you're learning songs, do you feel that there's an era that is trickier than others? Is the Dave stuff more challenging than the Sammy era,
that's a
or
good
the other way
question.
around?
I think Ed's playing got a lot more intricate, especially with the rhythms and things in the Sammy era. Uh,
Mm,
there's a lot of kind of sameness in a lot of the Dave riffs. They're very similar, and I think he
mm,
expanded himself.
yeah.
He's obviously playing a lot more in standard tuning with Sammy, so that opened
Mm,
up his range a lot. And the solos were a lot more melodic. He was working more on those. He wasn't blazing, as much, I think. And that's another great thing about the two eras is that you got that kind of a wider sampling of his skill and talent and songwriting, and I don't think you would have got that if Dave just stayed in the band and the whole time. So,
no.
No.
but what because sometimes I teach, I have some students, and I basically teach this stuff, and what I tell everybody right off the bat is that a lot of what Ed is doing is not hard. It's just hard getting the feel, and and all,
Mm,
and and
Yeah.
and there's basically like 13 tricks that he does, and he just redeploys them in different spots on the neck. And uh, as soon
hmm
as you learn, like, oh, it's that little thing he does, and you just put it in the right spot, that's a great way to look at it, as to been to think, oh, he's just coming up with something completely new here. He's not. He's just reusing the thing he did on that song in this song, but in a different area. So there's there's only so many techniques that he came up with, and
Yeah.
it's if you concentrate on learning each one, like just like his legato and the way he would that the way he would use the pinky, that little style of lick is all his, and you know, it's in so many different places, in so many different songs and things and solos, and if you just work on, then you can, you know, that's just a way to sound like him if you learn how to do, you know. That thing, or there's all kinds of stuff where if you just learn that little way to do it, then you'll sound way more like him than you did before you you didn't know how to do it. So it's
kind of funny because now when I'm looking at it, I'm just gonna grab a guitar myself. But I saw like when you did like I don't know if you can hear this, but that sort of figure, that's pretty much that one, and that one is pretty much all there is. Like those are the
yeah,
three
and as soon as you
variations.
figure out what he's picking and what he's not picking, then it'll sound more like it, because there's certain guys that have to pick everything. You know, like they just don't know how to not pick.
Yeah.
And you know, like
Yeah. It's very much the legato that brings out the edge.
you know, like he's not picking everything, and that's what's making it sound that
Yeah.
way. That's really, it's not even the
Yeah.
notes, it's the picking and the attack from this side that makes it sound the way it does, because if you pick everything, it's not going to sound like it. So it's those little tiny nuances that make all the difference. So
One thing I always thought that really set Ed apart from so many other guitarists was his control of the harmonics. The other day I was listening to Top of the World from Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, and I had actually never really paid attention to the chorus where he does this little harmonics melody line that sort of complements the melody line from Sammy. And I thought I was like, damn, that was really clever.
you know, it's also like in Dance the Night Away. You know, like it's under there. You know, like he plays that under the choruses, especially as it gets later in the song. So yeah, he's you know, and that was all his creation. That you know, octave tapping the harmonic out. You know. So it definitely adds a lot of tones to the.
But also, like one of the things about Eddie Van Halen is, aside from the blazing beat guitar thing, but he was really, really incredible at orchestrating uh, an entire like band with just a guitar, and of course a great bass player and a drummer. But as a power trio, they made a lot of sound, and he was really clever about how to go about the whole rhythmic part of
he
songs.
made it sound like there were more than one guitar, just in one guitar track. You know,
he really did.
That was, and that's from pure necessity. That wasn't because he like wanted to create that. He just wanted it to sound fuller and figured out a way to do it. You know, so.
Well, I recently heard a podcast with Wolfie, Ed's son, and in the podcast he was asked, not necessarily related to his dad, but he was asked, like, who do you consider one of the most underrated guitarists? And he actually said his dad. And by that he meant that his dad is getting all the praise for his shredding and all that stuff, but what he felt like his dad really didn't get enough credit for was his songwriting skills. And I agree. because not only did he write great songs, but every
Right.
single, in my opinion, every single solo he did was built up around the song. Like you can take any Eddie solo, and like if you know your Van Halen, you can say exactly what song it's from. But if
Spanish Fly.
yeah, no, but
Yeah,
every
sorry.
little solo was like a song
Yeah.
within a song.
Well, he
Yeah.
I mean, right. He started as a drummer, right? Eddie did, so he had that
Mhm.
uh, percussive sensibility, and if you listen to
That makes
his
sense.
guitar
Yeah.
playing, it's all percussive. He's helping,
Mm.
you know, that part of the music way more than people, you know, believe or understand. A lot of his riffs are really percussion
Mm.
items and not so much riffage. It's just a way to,
Yeah.
like, the Mean Streets intro is all percussion.
I was just thinking. Yeah.
That's a percussion. That's like a paradiddle type thing, and he's doing it on a guitar. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, that's yeah. Like he's not only of his generation, the best lead player. He's the best rhythm player. There's no argument. His rhythm,
Yeah.
his ability to
Mm.
lock in with his brother, and that's really the secret to Van Halen, is the brothers' connection in their
It's the same with
rhythm
Pantera.
sensibility. They are
The,
Yeah.
so
the two,
locked
yeah.
in, and
Yeah.
that's what you're hearing as the real secret sauce to Van Halen is the connection between Eddie and Alex and their instruments, and how
Mm.
fucking tight that all is, and how loose it
Yeah.
all is together at the same time, and how it all
That's
And
what makes it
and playful
both
and
so
swing.
playful.
Their
playful.
dad's
Yeah, but
a jazz musician. They swing. Like they do things that other guys never thought to do in rock music, and they made it like a whole new style, and that's what really sets them apart. And
I was asked, yeah, when Eddie died, I was asked to participate in like a benefit sort of project where we would record a Van Halen song and like whatever that gross money wise would go to a sort of like a school for music or something like that. I can't really remember what it was, but I just say yes. And the song we were supposed to do, which we did, was in a
yeah,
simple rhyme. And I was not ready for how much of a challenge, like the rhythm.
yeah,
Yeah.
just and he's right on this.
And also the
Yes.
swinging. Yeah. The whole, everything of that.
But yeah, no, that's an underrated song for sure. But yes, he's
Yeah, the least of my problems with that song was the lead. Everything else was
hmm
quite a challenge because you really had to get like underneath the groove really. And luckily it was a great drummer. It was Ivan from Warrior Soul, so we are already locked in a little bit. But this really was like a challenge, a big one, and it really made me respect his rhythm skills with that.
yeah. No, it's all good. Like I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to this artist and this person and this icon and guitar hero, all that stuff, and people try to compare this guy to that guy and Hendrix to Van Halen, and the thing I always like to say whenever there's an argument about who's the greatest of all time is that Eddie Van Halen was the Willie Mays of guitar. And if you know who Willie Mays is, Willie Mays is
Mm.
considered one of the greatest baseball players of all time because he did everything better than everybody. And when it comes to Van Halen, like, who has the best tone, who has the best sound, who has the best equipment, who has the coolest equipment, who has the best songs, who has the best rhythm playing, who has the best lead playing, who looks better than everybody on stage, who carries themselves better than anybody on stage. It's all there with Eddie Van Halen, and with any of the other players, you can take pieces of those away. They don't have it all. He checks every box, and that's why I think, and I'm biased, obviously, that he's the number one guy in the history of the sport. You know, he's the one, and that's what I'll always argue about. You know, that there's that very important thing about Van Halen, and that he could play the way he played and had all that skill, but there are so many guys who play amazing and have skill, but they don't have the songs. And Eddie has the songs, and that sets him apart from everybody. And that's kind of what Wolfgang was talking about, was that, yeah, he had all that technique and all those things going, but he wrote all those amazing songs, and nobody can touch that.
Exactly. I was thinking the only one, in my opinion, that was able to, well, not duplicate, but just had some of the same with the harmonics thing as we talked about before, was Vito Bratta from White Lion, who oddly enough looked, a lot like Eddie too, but but he had he definitely tried to sort of not mimic
It was
Eddie in his
impossible.
playing,
Yeah,
but he had,
he definitely
yeah, but he sort of found
he
his own
did,
way.
but it was the timing. Like back then, I don't know how old you guys are, but when I was around, and yeah, well,
44.
he came out,
49.
and every band that came out in the mid to late '80s was a record company directed copy of Van Halen, and that was it. Like they
Yeah.
they wanted their own Van Halen, so they tried to build whatever they could. And if you look at all the bands that came out, like they have a blonde singer, they have a shredding guitar
Exactly.
player.
Dave
Yeah,
Dave was like
they were
the
template.
foundation
Yeah,
for every, like, whether it was Bret Michaels or Janie Lane or
and
like Vince
you
Neil,
could
they all
argue
wanted
that
to be
maybe
Dave.
Robert Plant was the original blonde singer. Sure, but Robert Plant didn't move around.
Yeah.
He stood in one place, and so yeah, Vito came out, and
Yeah.
that was a time where you didn't copy, or it was obvious, and so he got a lot of heat because he just sounded way too much like Ed, and more than anyone ever did, and obviously he looked like him too, which was weird. Yeah, and he
Yeah.
wrote some great songs, and I think there was a lot of that band would have done a lot better if they were in a different era. If they weren't just in that era of Van Halen copies and whatnot. So no, but he definitely captured the tone and the feel as good as anybody. So for sure.
All right. So just to like a final sort of subject or question I just want to touch on is with the whole Sammy getting doing the, what was it, the Best of All Worlds tour, and they got Joe Satriani in as a guitarist. When that whole thing initially was mentioned, I actually thought they're gonna get somebody like you. Uh, and I no, but really, I was surprised that they picked Joe Satriani. First off, because, well, it's basically just Chickenfoot, the band they're playing now, and the thing about it is, like, there is not a single doubt that Joe Satriani is like a tier one phenomenal genius
Yes.
of a guitarist, but I just didn't feel like he was the right guy to
Yeah.
play Van Halen, because I read interviews or saw interviews with him when he sort of took the job, and said that he had just studied and studied and listened and this, and I think that it goes back to the thing we talked about before. Like it gets too. It's sort of like what's the word? It just gets. He sounds a bit too stiff. Like there's not like the playfulness in it because he is so
Well, yeah, I mean, he's
focused on getting
he's Joe
every note right.
Satriani, and he does Joe Satriani really well, better than anybody.
Mm.
Yeah.
Some would say,
Yep.
Yeah.
and it's
Yep.
hard to turn that style into a different style, especially. And he's admitted, like he purposely never learned any Van Halen stuff because he didn't want to sound like Eddie Van Halen. He didn't want to be accused of stealing from Eddie Van Halen, so he never learned anything of his. And 'cause that was a big deal, especially like I just mentioned with Vito Bratta. Like nobody
Yeah.
wanted to be accused of stealing in those
Yeah.
days because that was like death. It was death
No.
to your career if you got caught stealing. And
Yeah.
you could steal. Like, I mean, Eddie stole a lot from Eric Clapton, but he changed the attack and the feel of it to make it his own. Those are Eric Clapton licks. He's playing a lot of those songs, and so Joe is doing Joe, and he's he's one of Sammy's best friends. I totally get why he got the job. He's comfortable.
They already know each
Go
other.
with someone
Yeah.
you're comfortable with.
Absolutely.
Another thing that they're playing all those songs a whole step down, which is not easy, and it takes a lot of sweetness out of
No.
a lot of those songs. Your ears are going to hear it. You're going to notice. Not like maybe non-musicians might not feel it as much, but those are all parts of it that add or take away from the experience. So I haven't gone to one of these Sammy shows. I might.
You should do the Vegas
He just
residency.
did it. And he did it last year, and he did it a few months
Well-
ago, and he's doing another one in September. I might go to that one, but I'm hoping it's because he invites me. So, which he has.
He should.
Technically,
He
he
should.
has. He's commented on my Instagram a few times already now, and literally said you should please come to Vegas. But he hasn't responded to any of my DMs to try and lock it in. So I don't know if he wants me to knock on the stage door or something. I'm not going to do that because that'll be too weird. But I definitely am hoping that would be a lot of fun to sit in and play a couple or one or two songs with Look to My Right, and there's Sammy and Michael Anthony. That would be a thrill.
That would be a dream come true. Yeah, you also played with Nuno a while ago.
We did the
didn't you?
Monsters of Rock
Yeah.
cruise, and
Oh,
when you play one of those cruises, you play like two sets in a 5-day period, and the second one we were actually bugging Gary the whole time on that cruise to try and get him to sing Without You with us because our band plays Without You. We do have it in our long sets.
Yeah.
We'll put in because we do all eras of Van Halen, and when it's funny because we have like a backdrop and on the screen it says Nerd Halen, but when we switch to a Sammy song, it'll switch to Nerd Hagar, and so we started doing the Gary song, and we made a Nerd Sharon back line. So. And it's funny because when we do Without You, it's probably the funniest joke in the show is the pre-chorus where it's how long can this go on, that part, and we sing that the background vocal, and our singer Hal goes, "One album, one tour," and it's the funniest thing. I actually told Gary about that joke because I said just full disclosure, we make fun we make fun of you or Van Halen 3, we make fun of it by saying that, and he heard that and he goes, I want to sing that part, but he never did. But there one night our second show was Pat and the bass player and Nuno standing there off stage to the left. And Hal pointed out, he's like, Caleb's played for a long time in practice, but he never practiced knowing, Nuno Betancourt would be staring at his fingers. And, and then we got a little note from him saying, I'd love to play on Hot for Teacher, and we obliged. And it went really well. It was the first time I ever saw my band playing without me, but it was fun. And it's crazy because in the video, you can see me like kneeling down and I'm trying to show him. I got so much shit for this because everyone's like, stop bothering him. But that guitar that he was playing, that was mine, was it had a push pickup selector. So, the part of Hot for Teacher, it was on a front pickup. So I just wanted to show him that all he had to do was push that button on the volume knob to get that sound, but it got lost in translation, and I look like an idiot, and I got so much online for like, who's that guy bugging him?
Jeez. Well, that's great.
It's funny mentioning Nuno, because when you were talking about Thomas, that maybe Joe Satriani wasn't the greatest fit for this Sammy Hagar thing. I had two guys in mind that I would like to see do that, and one was Pete Vaughn, the other one was Nuno. I thought those two guys would have they seem like being connected, spirit animal-ish.
Absolutely. And if you want to look at guys with great right hands, like Nuno is probably in my second to Eddie, with or even ahead of him in certain styles with the right hand. He does stuff with his right hand that are it's just incredible. So he would have been a great choice, but here we are.
Well, Caleb, I know you have other obligations, so I don't want to hold you on the, and we were delayed and everything.
I pick up my kid at school. That's
well, that is an obligation. Yeah. I was thinking what I would really, really love if you could sort of send us off with a little bit of sweet licks. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure, and just a final thing. If people want to check you out, I mean, I'm gonna link everything.
Yeah,
but is there
the band
something
is
you want
Nerd Halen on several different socials, and I'm at Caleb_Rapoport on Instagram, and the website for the band is nerdhalen.com, and you can get in touch with booking information if you want through that. And we play. We're fun. It's great. So keeping the music alive for sure.